Chicharito making his LA Galaxy debut. How about LAFC? How they do in their home opener? And this year is the 25th year for MLS. What about NISA soccer? New professional soccer league on the horizon. Tune in the next episode of Sideline Sports Podcast. Welcome to Sideline Sports Podcast. I am the host, Alex Naveja, and if you're not on the sideline, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast. Welcome to another episode of Sideline Sports Podcast. I am your host, Alex Naveja, and with me today is Gustavo Ortega. And if you're not on the sideline, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast. Gustavo, welcome back to being on Sideline Sports Podcast. How you doing?
Alex, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me again. It's an exciting time of the year. Soccer is back, and I'm excited to be here again.
We're talking about MLS, even NISA soccer, everything in soccer. The soccer world is going bananas right now. But before we talk about those bananas, this episode of Sideline Sports Podcast was brought to you by Lean Mean Meals. Make sure to get your meal prep done with Mitch Dominguez. He has you with your breakfast, your lunch, and even with your dinner. He also has you with detox juices. He even has cold brew coffee. So make sure to use my promo code SIDELINE10 to save yourself 10% off on all of your orders. I'll make sure to put all that information in the description down below. But you know what, Gustavo, we have a lot to talk about, especially with MLS opening up their season and a very big Mexican player coming to MLS in Chicharito and Javier Hernandez coming in. And wow, how did he do against LA or in LA Galaxy's first game?
Well, it was an exciting match against Houston. They played away, Houston Dynamo. It was a very tough match for Chicharito, their debut, because, he didn't have that much of a preseason with the team. He did come a couple of months ago, but his work visa wasn't available, so he wasn't able to train or play with the team. So it was a decent, I would say, debut for Chicharito. He didn't debut with a goal, as a lot of us would like to see, because he was the big acquisition this summer for MLS. To bring a player of that caliber who has been in Europe for the past 10 years, who played for Manchester United, Real Madrid, and other great teams. I think to bring that type of player here into the MLS, it was a huge move by the LA Galaxy.
So what kind of future are we expecting from LA Galaxy? Are we expecting them already to make that big time playoff push? I mean, they're already making the playoffs, but are we talking about deep into the championship round? Or?
Well, last year they fell against their rivals LAFC in the semifinals of the Western Conference, but it was more of a Zlatan team. Zlatan gone now, and I think this is more an equipped team. This is going to be more of a team game for LA Galaxy. I'm excited to see this team. I think they're going to be better at defense. We talked about it like the last episode we had MLS at the Sideline Sports Podcast. Galaxy has done a better job at acquiring defenders. I think they're going to be more secure in the back line. It was a tough draw, 1-1. They went up ahead 1-0 with a goal from Cristian Pavon, but it wasn't enough. But I think it's still a good point on the road against a very tough team. But I think LA Galaxy is going to be a much more balanced team. We just have to see and give that time to Chicharito to get help and as well as to get accustomed to the team, because like I said, he didn't have that much preseason, and I think he's going to get well alongside with Cristian Pavon up front.
And what kind of improvements have you seen already from LA Galaxy just from like that one game?
Well, I forgot to mention they were missing one of their major important players, which was Jonathan Dos Santos, who holds down the midfield. Absolutely incredible. But I think the backline, it's going to be a lot more better than they were last year. If it was something that really was the enemy of LA Galaxy, was their backline. We saw that game against LAFC in the Western semifinals. 5 goals that's not acceptable, and I think that's one of the key areas where LA Galaxy started to work on.
And what was it about Chicharito? Like, why did they choose him out of all the other
Wow.
players that they could have picked up? Why him?
Well, because it's, I would say, the next soccer figure next to Beckham. You know, when Beckham came to this league, it brought so much attention, so much noise. You know, one of the biggest British players in the last few years. Him coming into the MLS, I think, brought a lot of attention. A lot of people started looking into the league. And who else better than bringing Chicharito? You know, he's a well-known soccer player, top goal scorer for the Mexican national team. He scored a lot of goals in Europe, important goals as well. And I think it was the right time for him to come. You know, he wasn't getting a lot of playing time from Sevilla, the team that he last played for in Europe. So I think it was like I said, a good time to come back, and hopefully for him, he comes to a club, the club that has won the most titles, 5 of them, in these 25 years of MLS history. So I think it's another way to compete with the rivals who have an incredible talent with Carlos Vela up front, who started already the season with a right foot. You know.
And you talk about Carlos Vela, and just a lot of these Mexican-born players really
Right.
coming in and really making
Yeah.
a splash in the MLS and really making a difference now in this league.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's gotten a lot of attention because a lot of key players from Mexico are coming now to the MLS. You know, a lot of young players, not old players like in their 30s or close to their 40s, but now players who are actually in their prime. You know, or even earlier age. We have Rodolfo Pizarro, who plays for the Inter Miami, who played against LAFC this past weekend at the bank. So you have players like that, Osvaldo Alanis and Carlos Fierro, who plays for the San Jose Earthquakes, Alan Pulido, who will be a big part of the Sporting Kansas City, who also scored in his debut. So I think it's a lot of good players and a lot of players you ask from the Mexican League, and they don't say no to come in here. So we never know who. It's a matter of time who comes next. You know, not about if they will come or not. It's who will become next on that line.
and why is it that so many of these Mexican players they are leaving La Liga MX and they're leaving there and they're really coming into the United States and now they want to play MLS? Why is that?
Well, it's a debate that has been going on because, as we know, the Liga MX is still a very much better soccer league. In regards to the playing style and the teams, you have teams who have been longer, and I think it's the lifestyle, the money. I think they see the opportunity if you can play soccer at a league that is growing, and you have the opportunity to come play in the United States, and it's not that far from home. It's probably an airplane away from getting to your house. But I think it's that, and also the MLS is doing a great job marketing themselves throughout the world. Now they're gonna be aired throughout a lot of nations this year, itself. So a lot of people will be watching in Europe. You have a lot of teams who have or players who play in Europe coming into the MLS. So I think that's important, and it's creating competitiveness because now it's not longer the retirement league. It's a league that a lot of people are looking into as a potential coming in here and playing and develop soccer.
So is this going to be like the new wave of the big superstars from like the Liga MX? They're going to make that transition over to the MLS. Is this something that's going to be coming up as like a new generation?
Well, I think that's going to be an option for them, a priority, because nowadays before it was trying to go to Europe, but now it's a lot of South American players would come to Mexico, and from Mexico will go to Europe because it was the most visible soccer here in North America. But now that you have the MLS growing, you have other players looking into teams that can potentially see themselves over there in overseas and grow from there and make that jump. You have David Beckham, who's the part owner of Inter Miami FC. He is well known, like I told you when he just arrived here. Now as a owner, he has his team under his belt, he could probably he's probably pretty good friends with like the world star soccer players, like Ronaldo, Messi. He tried to reach out to them, like, hey, come to my team, but unfortunately they said no because it wasn't the right time. But I wouldn't doubt it if Cristiano Ronaldo or Lionel Messi end up playing here at the MLS level. We had rumors that LA Galaxy reached out to Messi. Imagine what that could have been. And I see that. I see that potentially happening. The top best soccer players come into the league.
These superstars, imagine them finishing their careers off here in the MLS.
And, it doesn't matter if Messi or Ronaldo are 36, 37,
they're still going to play the game.
Yeah, they're going to play, and we now know, like Chicharito even said in an interview recently, that it's very competitive. If you really think about coming here to retire, you're seriously playing yourself, because it's not. It's a very competitive league.
I say that's pretty well said right there by Chicharito. But now let's talk about the crosstown rival in LAFC.
Yeah.
They have their own player, Vela, who's also trying to. That's kind of like the counterpart for LAFC. But Galaxy answering with the acquisition of Chicharito. So now, what about LAFC? What did they look like in their first game?
Yeah, LAFC looked really, really strong. I think it was a good 1-0 win against Inter, who made their MLS debut. But I think it was, again, Carlos Vela. He's stepping up to the occasion. He left off where he from last year. He scored. He was a top goal scorer, and now he has 49 goals with LAFC in 3 years so far. He pretty much gave him the 3 points, a good victory at the bank, a great chip over the goalkeeper. I don't know how he did that. We never saw him looking at the goalkeeper on that replay. So I think LAFC, once again, one of the favorites to win the title this year. A lot of people have them actually winning it this year. Could it be the third time is the charm? Probably. The first year they had a heartbreak loss against Real Salt Lake in the first round. Last year they lost against
Seattle.
The current champions, Seattle Sounders, at home in the Western Conference Final. So I think it's year by year, like I told you, the experience, and they did excellent at the CONCACAF Champions League when they pretty much eliminated León, one of the strong teams from Liga MX. And that comeback, the 3-0 comeback at the bank, was a really good statement from LAFC to make sure that people know that they are here to fight for that title.
Wow, so it looks like the Fountain of Youth is really owned by LAFC. It looks like these new wave of players are really coming in, and they're already getting those reps and already getting that experience with the club.
Yeah, you're right, because you have a lot of young players who are under the age of 24. You have Bryce Duke, who just turned 19, Jose Cifuentes, who's 20, Chiqui Palacios, who's also 20, Brian Rodriguez, again, he's 19, Pancho Gillena, 21, Diego Rossi, a star player, 21, Edward Atuesta, a key player in the midfield, who's 22, Eddie Segura, 23, Tristan Blackman, 23, and Latif Blessing, who's also 23. Imagine that type of players who already have the first team experience under 24. So it's a very well balanced team for LAFC.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, what do you think is going to be the move right now for LAFC to really show the whole entire league? Hey, you know what? I know Galaxy made some moves in the offseason, but you know what? We're actually here to stay. We're actually the team on the that have the targets on our backs right now.
Well, so far, I was really surprised by LAFC letting go of Walker Zimmerman, their top defender, to Nashville SC, who are also making their MLS debut this season. And not to bring someone with that name or caliber, is going to be interesting to see if they sign someone during the summer, to see if they bring another type of caliber talent, because we saw in the first game against León, although it was preseason, they were still very shaky. The defense didn't look solid, but in this game against Inter Miami, they really held the opponents down to 0. So I think it was a good improvement, and also to help León to 0 goals at the bank at the CONCACAF Champions League match. It talks about the good work that Bob Bradley did over the last few weeks. But I think, if anything, I would sign someone with experience, the veteran presence that they need, just like Carlos Vela up front. I think they need that back line as well.
So very quickly, Gustavo, LAFC and Galaxy play. Who wins?
Right now, I'll give the edge to LAFC. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because I feel like they are still, well, they're pretty much still the same team from last year. They did had a couple losses with Lee Nguyen, who went to intern in Miami, Walker Zimmerman. But I still think is the core of players that was kept from last year. You know, they were the best offensive team. I think they're gonna do it, if not the same, but also better than last year. I think I see them reaching again the Western Conference final. We'll see if they win it this time, because I don't want to get there too soon, you know. But LA Galaxy is gonna be a good opponent, you know. But you know, the derbies, you have to play them. You know, it doesn't matter if you are the best team or the worst team. We're known for experience because you come here to play and win. That's the pride that's on the game. You know, your crosstown rivals. You know, you don't want to be getting laughed at on Twitter. You know, all those memes. You know, because then it's gonna be a long time till you face your opponent again. But I think it's gonna be a tough battle. But I think LAFC has the edge right now. Unless we see a more improvement from LA Galaxy, I think LAFC is the better team right now.
So there you have it. Another battle for LA, not just Lakers and Clippers, but also LAFC and the Galaxy. We're going to go to step aside from the 22 West studios, but when we come back, we're going to talk about some NISA Pro Soccer as well. A couple of results from week 1. Don't want to miss out, because if you're not on the sideline, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Munoz, and I play for the Guatemala Women's National Team, and you're here watching Sideline Sports Podcast.
Welcome back inside the 22 West Studios and to Sideline Sports Podcast presented by Lean Mean Meals. Once again, I'm Alex America, and with me today, Gustavo Ortega, play-by-play broadcaster for LA Force, along with soccer analyst for Sideline Sports Podcast. So now, first half, we were talking a little bit about, Galaxy. We're talking about LAFC. But now let's talk about another soccer league that doesn't really get as much recognition that it deserves.
Yeah.
Now, on Friday, you were doing some National Independent Soccer Association work, and you did it LA Force taking on against Detroit City FC.
Yeah.
Now, what happened in that game? From my understanding, I know LA Force came up with that loss. I believe Detroit City FC won that game 2-0.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a hard loss for the LA Force team because, they were at home in front of their home crowd. But I felt that Detroit City FC was the much stronger team on this side. I think they came out with the big 3 points on the road. I did see a lot of fans from Detroit coming down to this game.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was very surprised.
Impressive.
Yeah, we had a lot of people interacting with us on Twitter from Detroit, from the city clubhouse.
Wow.
Yeah, who were stayed up late to watch the game. So a big thank you to them for making us, their go-to play-by-play guys to watch the game. And I think it was a very intense matchup because I didn't see that firepower from LA Force yet on the first half until, we saw Detroit FC, Matt Lewis, who scored the opening goal in their debut. Pretty much it was their
league debut.
Their league debut as well, because if Detroit hasn't had a professional soccer team in decades, so it was very special from them. I met a couple people from Detroit who actually did the travel, talked to them before the game. I got to talk to the coach, Gaffer. Very well balanced team. And I think for them to come out with a win like that, it was very impressive.
Do you think this game 1 is what's going to tell what the season is going to be like? Do you think this will be a hangover year for LAFC, or do you think this is just going to be a slow start?
Well, they do have a new set of players, so it's going to be interesting to see how they develop throughout the season. They do have a game this Friday coming up, so it'll be March 6th. So tune in so you guys can watch the game and listen to us But yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting to see how they bounce back. It was a tough loss, so they get another second chance at home. I think it's gonna be probably a long season because of the new players, but I wouldn't doubt it if they bounce back this game coming up. They're at home again, but I think I like this system. East against Coast, East against the West. Everybody against everyone, and there's no West or versus or East conference anymore like they did during the fall. So now teams get to travel to the East Coast, and the East Coast could come over here. So it's gonna be interesting to see how they end up. Let's remind there's 8 teams, and the first 4 advance to the next round.
So very quickly, last year there weren't as many teams that were a part of the National Independent Soccer Association last year, and it was only West Coast teams against West Coast teams, and it was East Coast teams taking on against East Coast
Right.
teams.
Mm-hmm.
So now this year, this being a brand new year,
Mm-hmm.
new teams. We're talking about, just like Gustavo said, the West traveling over to the East and vice versa. And this is actually really nice to see. And you know what? For those of you that don't even know about NISA soccer, let them know what was the energy like there at Cal State LA. They were even playing in a
Wow.
pretty nice stadium.
Yeah, it was a beautiful stadium at Cal State LA, also known as Jesse Owens Stadium. It's right off the 710. So if you guys have a chance, go check it out on Friday, March 6th. I think it's gonna be a great game. But the crowd was spectacular, Alex. There was a lot of
Wow.
people going to support the LA Force.
And just to say, LA Force was actually playing at Rio Hondo College.
Yeah,
And,
last year. Mhm.
And Rio Hondo, not exactly the place you want to put a pro soccer team where you have a big fan base,
Right.
and being in a big city in Los Angeles, you
Mhm.
need to have a big stadium to be able to house all and see all of those fans there. So I think the move over to Cal State LA was a big time move. So it was LA Force end up falling in that game 0-2, and you know what? Great debut, I would say, for Detroit City FC.
Yeah, Detroit FC, City FC. Like I said, the coach Gaffer, he was unbelievable. He's been in soccer for more than 30 years, so he's a West Coast kid. So I think he brought that experience into the team and that knowledge. Let me see who they're playing next week, I believe. Yeah, March 6th. LA Force will be taking on Stumptown Athletic. Or the game will be at 7:30 Pacific time, Cal State LA.
So, what are some things that you think LA Force needs to improve on to be able to play such a very contested East Coast team like that?
Well, I think they gotta improve offensively. They hardly lack that firepower up front. They weren't able to break through the back line of Detroit City FC. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how they work throughout this week to develop a new set of opportunities, to look for their forwards, or whether it's via free kicks or set pieces or long range shots. I think it's going to be, or trying to break the line, because it's going to be tough for them if they can't get through.
So, very quickly, where can the fan base watch this game at?
Well, they could watch it through Maikuju via TV Emax. Big shout out to them. Stay tuned for that. You can follow me on Twitter as well, Gustavo _Ortega, for more updates on LA Force. And also the NISA Twitter, right? NISA League.
Of course.
Yeah, you can follow us there for more updates. But for sure, there will be game number 2 for LA Force on Friday, March 6th against Stumptown Athletic at 7:30.
So let's talk about a little bit of that, Orange County LA rival, and let's shift our attention over to Orange County. For those of you that are very familiar with Orange County, the former champions, Cal United Strikers, last year being the champions, playing against LA Force last year. And if you wanted to see a great soccer match, that was the one to watch. It was a tied ball game between these two goals with both of those teams. They go to extra time. They even go to penalty kicks, and it goes down to the wire where Cal United ends up winning in PKs. But they had their home opener over at Gray Park in Irvine, the Championship Stadium, And they played against another new opponent as well that's new to the league in Michigan Stars.
Right.
And I have to say, great soccer game. I mean, absolutely great. Shout out to Simon Allen, also known as the Dalai Lama of soccer, who I'm hoping he's going to be tuning into this episode of Sideline Sports Podcast. But him and I had the opportunity to broadcast that game, and I have to say, this Michigan Star team is not a team to take lightly. This is a team that definitely has a lot of firepower, has a lot of weapons. Game ended at a 1-0 final. Michael Bryant coming up on a laser beam shot. I mean a laser beam shot. Deflected off of the Prince himself. Then it was Kevin Gian who came up on the second chance opportunity and puts it into the net to make it to a 1-0 game, and it would stay that way. But at the beginning of the match, it was Christian Tieryoung, big-time player for Cal United, who was just inches away. Missed it on the top right corner of the uprights. Comes up with a kick. Beautifully. He got a cross. Comes in with a shot. Misses it on the top right corner of the uprights, and it was just inches away from missing a goal there. And there was even another opportunity for Michigan Stars, who would end up trying to come in and get a goal of their own. And they were also inches away. So if you ask me, that final should have been 2-1. And this game was just one of those games neck and neck.
Yeah, it's probably one of those close games where you have a lot of opportunities, but unfortunately you can't finish all of them. But it was a good win for Cal United. You got a West Coast team taking the victory. Unfortunately, LA Force wasn't able to. But yeah, like you said, these two teams, Cal United and LA Force, they battled it down last year to all the way into the final. Cal United came out victorious. But LA Force, they actually did very well, in that group stage, finishing first with 11 points, just over Cal United. And I think it's going to be a great rivalry between these two teams, because, Alex, they both, they're trying to create that rivalry, right? The OC versus LA rivalry.
Oh, you have to love that.
You have to, because
there's always OC versus LA rivalry in sports.
And it's not that far from each other, just 35, 40 miles away from each other. So, if you haven't gone to Cal United games, you have to go, right? Beautiful park.
Very beautiful stadium indeed over in a championship stadium in Irvine. So if you guys haven't seen a home game, definitely want to put that on your bucket list. But the next opponent, also a SoCal native, 1904.
Right.
That game resulted in a draw, and I believe it was against Chattanooga.
Yeah, Chattanooga.
Mm-hmm. It resulted in a draw, Mm-hmm. And now both teams sitting at 1 point apiece right now in the standings right now in NISA soccer. But 1904 is also another team that was also trying to come up with a final push to try to eliminate LA Force last year in the playoff runs and such. So 1904 came up with a draw there.
Mm-hmm.
And now this weekend on Sunday, they're playing against the former champions in Cal United Strikers.
Yeah.
So
what a home opener, right?
And it will be their home opener. So it'll be pretty interesting to see on that matchup between Cal United and now with 1904. And it looks like 1904 have themselves a new venue.
Yeah, Lincoln High School.
Looks like a Lincoln High School now. So previously they played over at SDCCU, home of the San Diego State Aztecs football. So now they moved over to a different venue, over to Lincoln High School. Now, this is going to be an interesting matchup, home opener, and the 1904 fan base they're into it. They're in it from minute 1, the Black Plague, you name it. They're in it from minute 1 all the way to minute 90, and that they do not stop a chant unless if it's halftime.
Yeah, I think they're building a great fan base down there in San Diego. We were at their home opener last year, Alex, and I think it was a very intense game. I believe they also play against Cal United, if I'm not mistaken, on that home opener of last year. But I think it was like I said, it's gonna be an intense game. Both teams really want to come up with the 3 points. Cal United started with the right foot. 1904, they don't want to let their crowd down. And come out with the 3 points at home would be very, very pleasant for them. Now you have 4 teams with 1 point each. 1904. Stumpton Athletics, Chattanooga FC, Oakland Roots, who had an intense game as well. And at the bottom of the table, you have Michigan Stars with 0 points, and as well as LA Force, who's at number 8 because of the goal differential.
They're still trying to look for their first set of points
Right.
in the season.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting because they play Stumptown Athletic, who has 1 point, so we'll see how that plays out.
And it's looking like these East Coast teams having to make the trip out here on the West side.
Yeah,
now.
it's if you've done the trip to the East Coast, it's around 4, 5, 6 hours, so it's pretty heavy. But it's actually funny because I talked to the coach from Detroit City FC, and I told him, how was the trip? He's like, it wasn't bad at all, man.
Wow.
They felt comfortable. They were ready to play, and they loved the weather. So I mean, the low temperatures out there in Michigan, on the East Coast is pretty heavy.
Mm-hmm. So what are your expectations going into week 2 of this brand new season of NISA?
Well, we're gonna see pretty good matchups, but I hope to see LA Force wake up, in front of their home crowd, get the 3 points. We'll see how the game between Cal United and 1904 goes, because it's gonna be a very good match on a Sunday night. You don't want to miss it.
There you go. And just like Gustavo said it, you can tune in on the My Cuju website. You guys can even look us up on YouTube. Just type in the matchup that you're looking for, and we do go on YouTube Live as well. So we'll be there for the TV Emax crew. Gustavo will be out in Cal State LA.
Yes.
For the LA Force game, and I will actually be out over in San Diego for the game for Cal United against 1904. But you know what? That's all the time we have left here inside of the 22 West Studios. We thank you all so much for tuning in today. If you really enjoyed this episode of Sideline Sports Podcast, make sure to hit the subscribe button and make sure to give this video a thumbs up. We definitely greatly appreciate that. The more subscriptions we get, the more thumbs up we get. We're only going to come up with bigger and better content for you folks. And we'll even have some pretty good pro athletes to be coming onto the show as well. So don't sleep on Sideline Sports Podcast just yet, because we have some big goals coming up for you guys. And remember, this episode of Sideline Sports Podcast was brought to you by Lean Mean Meals. Make sure to get your meal prep done with Ms. Dominguez. He has you with your breakfast, your lunch, and even with your dinner. He also has detox juices along with cold brew coffee. Make sure to use my promo code SIDELINE10 to save yourself 10% off on all of your orders. I'll make sure to put all that information down in the description down below. And with us today was Gustavo Ortega, LA Force play-by-play broadcaster, and of course, Sideline Sports Podcast soccer analyst. Thank you so much for being with us today, Gustavo.
Well, thank you, Alex. It's been a pleasure, and thank you to everyone who has supported my colleague Alex. It's been a really grateful opportunity for me to be here. So if you guys want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at Gustavo_A_Ortega, or as well as Instagram, same username.
I'll make sure to put that down in the bottom of the screen, wherever it's at. It's usually on the bottom left corner of the screen there. So make sure to follow Gustavo to stay up to date with all of your LA Force or even your soccer content. He has you with all of your soccer content. We're talking about MLS, Liga MX, we're talking about NISA, whatever content you're looking for that is soccer related. Where if you're not on the sideline, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast. Have a good night, everybody. We'll see you guys next week.